The Mae Young Classic, I very much enjoyed last year's tournament. This year's tournament has the potential to be even better from what I've heard. People who were there who have said, oh, this year's tournament, you're going to like it even more. Some of the matches are even better than the ones from last year. So I have high hopes for this. And the premiere episode aired on the network this past Wednesday. It'll be airing after NXT each week. This is a 32-woman tournament with the finals taking place at the Evolution pay-per-view October 28th at the Nassau Coliseum. 9 of the 32 women are back from last year's tournament. Toni Storm, Mercedes Martinez, Tainara Conti, Rachel Evers, Mia Yim, Kavita Devi, Rhea Ripley, Reina Gonzalez, and Zaya Lee. And the big comeback face last year, the big comeback story was Serena Deeb. This year it's Caitlyn, who's been away for a number of years now, and she's looking pretty good these days. She's looking a little bit different than she was the last time we saw her. She's in this tournament, so she may be the big feel-good sort of comeback story that they build around on commentary when her match happens. Michael Cole, Beth Phoenix, and Renee Young are the commentary team for this year. Last year, they put Jim Ross together with Lita. And I don't blame them because, in theory, hey, you could put Jim Ross with almost anybody, right? And you're probably going to get a pretty good announce team. Well, they were not good. And I think I'm being kind. They just had no chemistry whatsoever. Lita added absolutely nothing to the matches. JR was just fucking up the names of moves left and right. And it's funny, I remember during the finals, the live finals that aired, when they showed Asuka, and it was a bunch of other women. I think Summer Rae was there. And they showed them all sitting at ringside. I remember he called them fans in the front row. Look, I love JR. He's still the best of all time to do it, but I was relieved when I saw that they were not bringing the two of them back for the second time around. I just don't know. Not every tournament is going to be a good fit necessarily for JR, and I thought last year was not a good fit. Michael Cole, he did an excellent job with Nigel McGuinness on the United Kingdom tournament, the first one they did in January of last year. So when he does not have the Irish Madman in his ear, we know he can be really good. Although before Meiko Satomura came out for her match here this week, he looked into the camera and screamed, "It's Meiko time!" I thought maybe he was, promoting people to take their cars, double A MCO. No, he just looks right into the camera, "Oh, it's Meiko time!" And she instantly became less cool. So he needs to cut that shit out. The show opened with Tegan Nox against Zatara, who they said is the first Chilean wrestler in WWE history. Tegan was supposed to be in last year's Mae Young Classic. She was sidelined, though, with a torn ACL, and she missed it. And this was depressing to watch. I guess this is kind of spoilerish, but not really. Because, she got hurt again in this year. I mean, I talked about this on the podcast when it happened. She got hurt again in this year's tournament. I won't say when or what match it was or exactly what happened, but just knowing that as I'm watching this and they're talking about what a great comeback story it is, and she came back from the knee injury and she's the odds-on favorite, Michael Cole's picking her to win, it was depressing to listen to. Nox had a brace on the same knee that she had the ACL surgery on, and the knee became the focal point of the match. She won, though, with the Shining Wizard. I thought the work here was solid enough. I mean, nothing overly exciting, but, good energy from her. I mean, I could see what they see in her. I think she looks like a star, and if she can stay healthy, and that's going to be the key for her, because when she comes back, and it's going to be many more months before we see her again, she's going to have to just keep her fingers and toes crossed and just hope and pray that it's a long time before she gets hurt again, because if she were to come back and suffer another knee injury, I really, at that point, she's very young. I mean, I don't know, though, at that point, what happens to her, because at some point, you just look at it and go, is this person injury prone? And for her sake, I hope that's not the case. She had the torn ACL last year. What I didn't mention was she had another knee injury, I think around June of this year, after she came back. Now, this was a minor one. She didn't really have to miss much time. She didn't need surgery or anything like that, but it was a scare. And she did hurt her knee, and then, of course, got hurt again during this tournament. So hopefully she can battle back from that. We had Rhea Ripley against MJ Jenkins from Brooklyn, New York. Now that Katrina is dead on Lucha Underground, or seemingly dead, I have moved on. And Rhea is my new favorite now. I was very impressed with her last year, and she's only 21. Actually, she'll be 22 next month, I think. Not that I check these things or anything. She has changed things up from last year. This is the dark version of Rhea, the heelish version of Rhea Ripley. She still has the blonde hair, but it's cut shorter now, and she carries herself like a heel. She refused to shake MJ's hand before the match started, so no code of honor for Rhea Ripley. MJ, which is short for Monique Jacqueline Williams Jenkins, which I can see exactly why she shortened it to MJ. She is a Brooklyn native. She trained with Johnny Rods, I'm guessing at Gleason's gym, where else? And she also trained with Devon Dudley. I don't know if that means that she was at the Team 3D Academy, if this was just training specifically with Devon and not Bubba. I don't know. I'm guessing she also trained at Team 3D, but she signed a developmental deal with WWE earlier this year, so she is under contract with them. She's a lot of fun to watch. MJ Jenkins here, my first exposure to her. She was a lot of fun to watch, but this was very clearly a showcase, not for her, but for Rhea Ripley. And I'm digging Rhea's new pump handle powerbomb finish that she used here to get the pin. I like that. But the way that she's evolved sort of in the last year is kind of cool. She's going through this process as you do when you're in NXT and you're at the Performance Center. You go through this process of trying to find what works best for you. And I think that this could be what works very well for her. She's going to be a big star. One thing that annoyed me, and I can't just let this go. There was a moment here where MJ is out on the apron, and she went to go hit some kind of springboard move into the ring. And just at that moment, Michael Cole mentioned that MJ has 19 siblings. And before he could finish telling whatever the story was that he was going to tell, Rhea drop-kicked her in the face and knocked her down to the floor, and it ruined Cole's train of thought, and he never finished the story. I need to know more about this. This girl has 19 brothers and sisters. Either her parents have remarried a bunch of times, and they're mostly half-brothers and sisters, or her father is Wilt Chamberlain. You cannot leave us hanging like that. I need to know more about this. This was quite the mismatch here in this next match. We had Lacey Lane against Vanessa Craven. And Lacey is about, 5'1", 5'2", and has only been wrestling for a couple of years. Craven is around 6 feet and has been wrestling for 14 years. And Lacey was trained at the Team 3D Academy by Bubba Ray and Devon. She's from Winter Park, Florida, which is where I think Full Sail is in Winter Park. I know the Performance Center is in Winter Park. So she was the hometown favorite here. She almost pulled off this impressive springboard move off the ropes at the beginning of the match. And then she screwed up the last part of it and she splatted on the mat. And I felt bad for her. Now, before this match, they showed Lio Rush at ringside when I was looking up some of her work before, because a lot of these women I've just not seen before. I've heard about some of them, but I've not seen their work. So what I do is I try to go and watch at least one of their older matches on YouTube or Dailymotion or wherever I can find them. And so for Lacey Lane, I looked her up and I found a match, it's on YouTube, between Lacey Lane and Lio Rush from just last year. Because again, she's only been wrestling a couple of years. So last year, she would have only been 1 year into the business. And I'm watching this, and it legitimately looked like this. There's a giant ring, and it looks like it's being filmed in a big classroom. Not even an auditorium, like a classroom at an elementary school. Somehow they got a wrestling ring in there, and they have a small audience, obviously, and they're having a match. And I have to say, they actually had a pretty damn good match together. But she tried this exact same move that she fucked up here. She tried that same move in that match, and she hit it perfectly. Because I wasn't sure, what exactly was she going for? Was she going for one of these lucha arm drags? Was she trying something else? Well, I know exactly what she was going for, because she used the same move in this match. What she was hoping to end the move with was a Hurricane Rana. That would have been the final leg of that maneuver. So it sucks that she screwed it up. in probably what was the biggest match of her career up to this point. But look, it happens, right? The crowd went silent for a second, but she kept on going, which is the best way to handle a botch. Just keep going and pretend that it didn't happen. Hit another big move that wows people, and they'll forget about what happened, 5 seconds ago. But Craven took control for a while until she missed a cannonball into the corner. Lacey pulled off a crucifix bomb for the pin and scored the upset victory. This was the weakest thing on the entire show. But Lane is actually very good, I think, for somebody with her experience level. But go watch that match with Lio Rush. I think even if you're not a big fan of the intergender stuff, and I'm really not, but I know when I see a match that I think is good, and this is a good match. The final match, the main event, was the biggest one. Meiko Satomura against Killer Kelly. Killer Kelly was on that Royal Albert Hall UK show that aired a few months ago. She is scary. I think that word killer is quite appropriate for her. She just looks pissed off at the world. I would say that she was sort of, for me, in that Tessa Blanchard role from last year. In that I was surprised to see Tessa, because of her name and her experience level, bounced out of the first round in her very first match in the tournament last year. And not because I thought she would win, but, I mean, they put her in there with Kairi Sane. I think it was Kairi Sane, right? So I figured she was losing. But I didn't think that they were going to bounce her that early from the tournament. Same here with Kelly. Meiko is an established name from Japan, a lot of buzz around her being in the tournament, so I never really thought she was losing, but I was surprised that they would bounce Killer Kelly this early because she is really good. Meiko's been wrestling a long time, so long in fact that they showed footage of her wrestling on WCW Monday Nitro in 1996. Yes, for all you new wrestling fans out there and young wrestling fans that probably are like, what's a WCW? First of all, that's depressing as shit. Because there are people listening who are thinking, Nitro, I've heard of that. What is that? Yes, that was a wrestling show, believe it or not. Actually, for a couple of years, it was a very good wrestling show. Before everything went off the rails. So yeah, she's been wrestling a very long time. That said, she's only 38. I thought I was going to look her up and see that she was 42, 45. She's only 38. So she started young. It won't be long before we see Izzy in the Mae Young Classic. People in Full Sail are going to lose their shit when Izzy makes her debut. I said before that I've been on YouTube, right, watching a lot of the matches with the women I don't really know that well. One of the matches I watched was Meiko Satomura against Asuka. A couple of years ago when she was still Kana over in Japan. It was a weird match because there was music playing during the match, but the match itself was about as awesome as you would expect a match to be between Meiko and Asuka. It also made me sad again to think of what Asuka is doing now and how the Asuka that we see in WWE is nothing, absolutely nothing like the Kana that those people saw in Japan. She went from wrestling Minoru Suzuki to losing to Carmella in 4-minute shitty matches. I don't know. It's just depressing to think about. But anyway, Satomura kicked the crap out of Killer Kelly. She had her in a one-legged crab at one point, and she transitioned into an STF in her first ever WWE match, an STF that looked more painful and more brutal than any STF that I ever saw John Cena use in over a decade. She had this woman's neck cranked to the right, her leg was going this way. Ugh. Kelly used a perfect plex for the closest near fall you'll ever see. You cannot come any closer to a 3 count than she did here without actually getting one. And then Meiko said, fuck this, I'm finishing this. And she won with the Death Valley Driver. The week before, they did the tapings for these matches, because they taped these matches, I think it was August 8th and 9th is when they did the tapings for the entire tournament except for the finals. The week before that, Sasha Banks replied to a video that Meiko tweeted of her training in the ring. She was hitting a bunch of kick pads with these really just rapid-fire kicks. Very scary. And so Sasha saw this, and she tweeted Meiko and said, I dare you to try to kick me. I would hit you with my bank statement. And Meiko responded by saying, I hope to fight you. Last I checked, Sasha Banks has no match yet for the Evolution pay-per-view. Now, I'm sure she will. I would have to assume they have some kind of plan in mind, maybe a tag team match with Bayley. But as of right now, she has no match at Evolution. I won't spoil anything for anybody who doesn't know what the finals of this tournament are, right? I mean, if we assume that Mako does not make it to the finals of the Mae Young Classic, okay, let's assume she doesn't make it. That'd be a hell of a match to put together at Evolution. Sasha against Mako, and I know people will say, well, nobody knows who Mako is. Evolution's for the mainstream audience, and that's a terrible match to put together. Hush. Hush. I would love to see Sasha against Mako. And actually, they did a hell of a job with the video packages up and down this show. They do really for all the tournaments they do, giving you background on each person. I don't think it would be that difficult to get people to buy into a match with Sasha Banks against somebody like her by putting together some really impressive video packages. You show that footage of her wrestling on Nitro from back in the day and you know, that sort of thing. You know, I don't think it would be that difficult to get people, into that match. I'm just saying, Sasha's got nothing going on right now. You could do worse than having her against somebody like Mako. But I thought this was a good first episode. I suspect there will be much better ones. The main event was excellent. The other matches ranged from okay to good. But WWE just has a great track record with these network, tournament specials so far. I really like the way they present these, and this one so far is no different.